Everyone hates to outline. When I tell kids I outline every book, oh my God, they hate it, because no one likes to, and I don't like to outline either. Now I can't work without it. That's how I think that's one reason I'm so prolific, is that I take a week, I plan the book. I plan everything that's going to happen. I know my ending. I have all my characters and what they're like. I start chapter 1. This is what happens. This is how the chapter ends. Chapter 2. This is the hard part. I have to do all the thinking. And I outline the story, outline the story. When I sit down to write, I've done the hard part. I know everything that's going to, I can enjoy the writing. I can relax and just have fun writing it. So these days I can't work without an outline. I have to have it. Back in the 90s, I wrote Fear Street and Goosebumps at the same time. And I'd have to go back and forth between, you know, the kid series and the teen series. And they were very different. And so that was harder to keep track of. And I really had to do very careful outlines. And I do a cheat sheet of all the characters. And it has their personalities and what they look like. And I had to do very good personality charts and character charts to keep everything straight. And I have to say, there was one book where halfway through the book, Chuck became Chris. That was sad. Unfortunately, I couldn't keep track of him for the whole book.
Nobody likes to outline, not even me. As a writer, it can seem kind of like counterintuitive, because you want to have the energy flowing and you want to let your characters direct you and speak to you and kind of decide their own fates. And the thought of outlining as an author can feel really restrictive, and I understand why people don't like to do it. However, the great thing about outlining is that it can be a real time saver, because I know there's a lot of authors out there who have written without one, have gotten halfway through their manuscript and have no idea where to go next. And then ending up having to trash a lot of pages because they have gone in a direction that's led to a dead end, and then they've had to start over. And the great thing about outlining is that you can save yourself that experience by, you know, writing out either a 3-act outline that just kind of like does a general story arc, or a chapter by chapter outline that really is very detailed and basically summarizes what's going to happen in each chapter of your book. You can make changes a lot easier in an outline. When you're reading an outline and you can see, oh wait, there's a logic gap here, you know, the character's motivations aren't clear here, this ending isn't satisfying. You can mark all of that stuff up really easy in an outline and revise it a lot quicker than sitting down and having to revise 300 pages. I think it's just a really great way to economize in terms of your time. And it makes you a better plotter. It really does, because it forces you to decide ahead of the game what's happening with your characters, and forces you to think a lot earlier about, you know, what they're going to do and what's going to happen. It also can be really liberating too, because when you have the plot kind of generally laid out for you, it frees you up to really invest in the character development, to really focus on the dialogue, because your plot is already set for you. So it kind of gives you the freedom to really immerse yourself in other parts of the narrative, you know, and you can pay more attention to those things because you already have your plot pretty much written out for you. So you have that kind of struggle already worked out. So those are kind of that's my advocacy for the outline, my defense of outlining, and I really do feel like you don't have to feel trapped by it. I can actually really free you, and you don't have to feel like an outline is some sort of, you know, prison sentence, like you have to stick to everything that's in the outline, because you can find out as you're writing that you have other better ideas, and you can go with those ideas. It's just great to have it there as a map.
Look, I love to go on walks as much as the next guy, not know where I'm going, and find my way into something I never planned on finding. And sometimes you find something cool and sometimes you don't. But I would not expect anybody else to pay to watch me do that. Now, that's storytelling. Storytelling is they're paying you to take them on a journey, on a walk. And if I'm going to go someplace I've never been before, I usually plan a route. Now, you can look at this like an architect. What if an architect came up to you and said, no, you hired this guy, and he goes, no, I have a great idea for your house. I have this living room I'm really excited about. I'm just going to start building, and we can get to the rest of it, and we'll figure it out as we go, and, I'll find things and little nooks. It'll be so great. I can't understand a writer who operates like that, because you'll spend so much time rewriting, because writing is like... it's like a giant house of cards. You have all these characters doing all these things. You're trying to make a statement, and to put everything together so that it works, so that everything fills every gap perfectly, that takes a great deal of symmetry. It happens through intelligent design.
Well, I think the issue of outlines is very important for writers, because in my experience I've gone through pretty much every book has had a different process. So, for example, my first novel, Sophomore Undercover, I wrote that without an outline. I just jumped in and started writing, and I even wrote it out of place, so I'd think, I really want to write the scene at the library, I want to write the scene at the tuck shop, and then it was, at the end it kept me writing, which is important, but at the end I was left with this really kind of formless mass, and at the end I had to jam a skeleton into this blob of a body, and that was pretty rough to do. But moving forward, my book since then, I've tried different kinds of outlines, more of a rough outline for subsequent books. The last book I wrote on a very detailed outline. Actually, it's called a treatment in the screenplay world. So it was about 70 pages, and it got into everything that would happen in the book, along with dialogue. And I actually used that treatment to sell my latest book, Dragon Slaying for Beginners, to Putnam. So I worked off of that when I was writing my last book. The thing I like to say with writing is I try not to make the same mistake twice, but I always find new and exciting ways to make mistakes. So I found that especially with the outlining process. For example, when I wrote without an outline, I ended up having a lot of stuff I couldn't use because it really wasn't a story, it didn't connect, it was a little bit messy, and that's no good. But then when I went the other direction, I wrote completely from a treatment, it felt a little stifling because you already have everything laid out, and you kind of lose that joy of discovery. And it was fun to write the treatment, but in the months that followed actually writing the book, it was kind of a bummer because I couldn't surprise myself anymore. And eventually it got to the point where I threw the treatment away when I was writing the book. So I think maybe there's somewhere between the two, where maybe there's more of a half treatment outline or something like that that might be the form that's really going to help me going forward.
There are, of course, many approaches that authors can take, but I do firmly believe that after a person has a core idea for a book and they begin to flesh that out mentally, that they can do themselves a huge favor by investing in the time to create an outline. To me, the biggest single benefit that results from starting with an outline is you can avoid something called writer's block. I mean, we often hear about writers saying, I get hit with writer's block now and then. I firmly believe that if an author takes a month, 2 months to construct an outline, that they are very likely to then to be able to begin writing and not suffer through writer's block. You see how the story is going to unfold, you see how it's going to end, and it just kind of frees up your mind to write without running into those speed bumps along the way. When I have finished an outline, I look at it as something which is going to grease the way. It's actually going to make everything run much more smoothly. By no means do I regard the outline as having eliminated any real effort or any enjoyment along the way. To me, it adds to the enjoyment because it lessens the frustration of not being quite certain how you want to proceed from point B to C or D to E and so on. I'm often asked about whether doing an outline inhibits creativity. I think it does exactly the opposite. Because there's an outline, as you continue doing some research during the course of writing, you see at a glance where you can plug in something that has heretofore gone undiscovered. That's exciting to know that you can do that and not lose the pacing of the story that you're working to achieve.
First of all, as far as what I've learned is there's a system. And because I cannot tell you how many times I have heard, yeah, I've been working on this forever and I'm stuck on it, I don't know where to go. And here's the thing, some writers really like to write, shall we say, freeform. They like to just start not knowing where they're going to end up. I say if that works for them, fine. But what I've found is far more often than not, that is a recipe to failure. That you end up with incompleted projects, you end up frustrated and quitting writing, or say you're still a writer but you haven't written anything in 3 years, which effectively means you're not a writer. And so I learned the power of outlining, which is you meticulously outline. You outline to where I wanted to have it to where I had a major plot point that I needed to hit every page to page and a half. And with that, and that means like on a 90-page feature screenplay, I wanted to have about 60 plot points from beginning to end. If you do that, you will discover your plot holes before you start writing the script. You will know that the story is working. I mean, all the insecurities, all the things that you may not realize will come to life. You will know that you have a cohesive story that makes sense beginning, middle, end, and that it hits all the beats, because you also know about where those are showing up. So if you understand the beats on a screenplay, you know that you're hitting them in the right places. With that system, I've never gotten writer's block. I can take a screenplay from treatment to production ready within a week. And as I mentioned before, I could write 2, 3, 4 TV episodes in a day. And, it's not because I'm the greatest writer in the world, it's because I understand this system. And this system helps you write mega fast, just stupid fast. And that is a very learnable principle. And if writers learn that, I think they will be amazed at how prolific they can become very fast, and how much less they run into frustrating problems. You're not going to paint yourself into a corner because you already know the path to getting out of the room.
You talk to authors and they'll tell you different ways how they get there. And some authors will say I outline, some authors say I start on page 1 and I just write and I do a bunch of drafts. The truth is they both outline. One of them just kind of skips the unimportant stuff and just does an outline. The other author, he's outlining, but he's filling in with blanks with all the narration and dialogue. But he's going to destroy that draft when it's all done, because he's going to take the framework that works, tweak it, and do another draft. So we're all outlining. Some of them are doing it in skeleton form. Some of us are doing it in narrative form. So yes, I outline, and I tend to do the skeleton outline rather than a narrative draft form of it. Because it's quicker, more efficient. I can parse out the information and the scenes, move things around quick and easy without having to waste a lot of time on narration that's going to get cut anyway. And then when I feel like I've got that framework working, then I do my point of view writing where I'm filling it in with emotions and action and dialogue. And so I'm a big believer in the outline.